In the bustling heart of a small-town restaurant, where the sizzle of steaks and the clatter of plates create a symphony of everyday chaos, something extraordinary unfolded one rainy evening that would change lives forever. Picture this. It's late, the dinner rush has died down, and the kitchen staff is winding up for the night. The owner, a no-nonsense guy named Marcus, who's built his business from scratch through sheer grit and long hours, decides to do a final walkthrough. He's always been strict about rules, no personal business in the kitchen, no wasting food, everything runs like clockwork because in the restaurant world, margins are thin and mistakes cost money. But as he pushes through the swinging doors, he freezes. There, in the dim glow of the overhead lights, is his newest dishwasher, a quiet man named Javier, huddled in a corner with a little girl, no more than 7 years old, perched on a stool. Javier slipping her scraps from the day's prep, a half-eaten burger, some fries, maybe a slice of pie that's about to be tossed. The girl's eyes light up with each bite, her tiny hands clutching the food like it's gold. Marcus feels a surge of anger at first. Rules are rules, right? But then he sees the hunger in her eyes, the way she devours it without a word, and something shifts. This isn't theft, this is survival. And in that moment, the kitchen hierarchy crumbles just a bit, because behind every role in a restaurant, there's a human story waiting to be uncovered. Stick with me. Because what Marcus discovered next about Javier's daughter and their past isn't just heartbreaking, it's a wake-up call about kindness, resilience, and the hidden struggles we all carry. If you've ever wondered how one small act can unravel a lifetime of pain and lead to unexpected redemption, you're in the right place. Hit that like button if stories like this move you, and subscribe for more real-life tales that remind us why empathy matters in a world that's often too busy to notice. Let's rewind a little to set the scene properly, because understanding the kitchen hierarchy is key to grasping why this moment hit Marcus so hard. In any restaurant, it's like a well-oiled machine with clear ranks. The executive chef calls the shots. Line cooks hustle under pressure. Servers charm the front of house, and at the bottom, the dishwashers, the unsung heroes who scrub away the mess without glory or tips. Javier had been there only a few weeks, an immigrant from Mexico with a soft-spoken demeanor and a work ethic that quietly impressed everyone. He showed up early, stayed late, never complained about the steam or the grease. Marcus hired him on a whim after a quick interview, figuring anyone who could handle the sink's endless pile was a keeper. But Marcus himself? He's the top of the pyramid, a self-made man in his 50s, divorced, with 2 grown kids who barely call. His restaurant, Marcus's Grill, is his life, poured every penny into it after losing his corporate job years ago. He prides himself on fairness but firmness, no freebies, no shortcuts. So, when he catches Javier feeding this child, his first instinct is confrontation. "What the hell is this?" He barks, his voice echoing off the stainless steel. Javier jumps. The girl shrinks back, her wide eyes filling with fear. But instead of excuses, Javier stands tall, though his hands tremble. "She's my daughter, Sofia, sir. She hasn't eaten since breakfast. Please, I didn't take from the paying customers, just the waste." Marcus pauses, the word waste hanging in the air. In that split second, the emotional trigger hits. Child hunger mixed with an act of quiet kindness. It's not about the food, it's about a father doing whatever it takes. Marcus, who remembers skipping meals as a kid in a struggling family, feels a crack in his armor. He could fire Javier on the spot, but something, maybe curiosity, maybe compassion, makes him say, "Bring her to my office. We need to talk." And that's where the mystery begins to unfold, layer by layer, like peeling an onion in the prep station. What Javier reveals next isn't just a backstory. It's a tragedy that breaks Marcus wide open, forcing him to question everything he thought he knew about success, struggle, and second chances. As they sit in the cramped office, surrounded by stacks of invoices and faded photos of the restaurant's opening day, Javier starts talking, his voice steady but laced with pain. Sofia clings to his side. Nibbling on a proper plate of leftovers Marcus grudgingly provides. It turns out Sofia isn't just any hungry kid, she's a survivor of horrors most people only read about in headlines. Javier explains how they fled Mexico 2 years ago after a cartel targeted his family. His wife, Maria, was a teacher in their village, outspoken against the violence that plagued their community. One night, gunmen stormed their home, demanding protection money they didn't have. In the chaos, Maria was killed, shielding Sofia from the bullets. Javier grabs his daughter and runs, crossing the border with nothing but the clothes on their backs and a few $100s sewn into his jacket. They bounced from shelter to shelter in the U.S., Javier taking odd jobs, construction, farm work, anything to keep them afloat. But Sofia, traumatized, stopped speaking for months, her little body wasting away from stress and inconsistent meals. She was always hungry, not just for food, but for safety, Javier says, his eyes welling up. Marcus listens, his tough exterior crumbling as he imagines the terror, a father carrying a silent, starving child through deserts and checkpoints, dodging authorities, all while grieving his wife. The revelation hits like a gut punch. Here's a man who's lost everything, yet he shows up every day to scrub dishes with a smile, hiding his pain behind efficiency. Marcus thinks back to his own hardships, a failed marriage, business loans, but they pale in comparison. This isn't just a tragic backstory. It's a mirror reflecting how privilege blinds us to others' battles. And as Javier describes Sofia's slow recovery, how she's starting to laugh again but still wakes up screaming from nightmares, Marcus feels broken not in defeat, but in awakening. He realizes the kitchen hierarchy he enforces so rigidly ignores the human element, the invisible weights people carry. Hook yourself here. Have you ever judged someone at work without knowing their story? This moment forces Marcus to confront his own isolation, sparking a chain reaction that transforms not just Javier's life, but the entire restaurant. Building on that emotional core, let's explore how this discovery ripples outward. Much like how a single drop plate can shatter the kitchen's rhythm, Marcus doesn't fire Javier. Instead, he offers help. Stay after shift tomorrow, he says. We'll figure something out. The next day, Marcus digs deeper, using his connections to link Javier with local immigrant support groups. But the real turning point comes when Sofia opens up. During a quiet moment while Javier works, she draws a picture for Marcus, a crude sketch of her family, with her mom as an angel watching over. "Papa says you're like a boss angel," she whispers, her first words to him. That innocence, juxtaposed with her past, shatters Marcus further. He learns more. Sofia has health issues from malnutrition during their escape weak bones, anxiety that manifests in stomach pains. Javier's been skipping his own meals to feed her, which explains his gaunt frame. Marcus, moved, starts a quiet fund among the staff, matching donations to get Sofia medical care. But here's the twist that adds mystery. As Marcus researches Javier's background to verify for aid applications, he uncovers something even more heartbreaking. Javier wasn't just a victim. He was a hero in his village. Before the tragedy, he ran a small community kitchen, feeding orphans and elders with whatever he could scrape. Together, Maria helped, turning it into a safe haven amid the violence. The cartel targeted them not for money, but because their kindness threatened the fear the gangs relied on. Javier downplayed it, but old news clippings Marcus finds online confirm it. Javier was known as the quiet giver, risking his life to help others. This revelation breaks Marcus because it echoes his own forgotten dreams. He opened the restaurant to create a community hub, but success turned it into a profit machine. Now inspired, he revamps the place, starts a pay-what-you-can night for families in need. Trains staff on empathy, even hires more immigrants with stories like Javier's. The emotional trigger of child hunger evolves into a broader lesson. Kindness isn't weakness, it's the foundation of true strength. Imagine if every boss paused to see the humanity in their team, how many lives could change. As the story builds toward its climax, tensions rise when word spreads about Javier's past. Some staff grumble, why special treatment? Testing the kitchen hierarchy Marcus is trying to soften. One-line cook, jealous of the attention, confronts Javier. "We all have problems. Why are you the hero?" It escalates into a heated argument, plates crashing, mirroring the chaos of Javier's old life. Marcus intervenes, sharing Javier's full story in a staff meeting, his voice cracking as he describes Sofia's drawing. The room falls silent. then erupts in support cooks offer to teach Javier recipes, servers, volunteer babysitting. The climax hits when Sofia, now healthier, performs a small dance at the restaurant's family night, her laughter filling the air where once there was only clatter. Marcus watches, tears in his eyes, realizing he's not just saved a family, he's rebuilt his own sense of purpose. Javier gets promoted to prep cook, his skills from the village kitchen shining through. But the deepest break for Marcus comes privately. He calls his estranged kids, apologizing for years of neglect, vowing to be present. The mystery of the tragic backstory resolves into redemption, showing how one caught moment can cascade into widespread healing. Wrapping this up, folks, this isn't just a tale from a restaurant, it's a reminder that behind every face in our daily grind, there's a story of hunger, kindness, and hidden pain waiting to be discovered. Life's hierarchies often blind us, but pausing to see the human element can break us open in the best way, leading to growth we never imagined. If this story touched you, like Javier's quiet act touched Marcus, do me a favor, hit that like button to spread the inspiration. Subscribe for more heart-stirring narratives that challenge how we see the world, and drop a comment below. What's one act of kindness you've witnessed that changed everything? Your stories keep this community alive. Thanks for watching. Remember, in a world full of rush, a little empathy goes a long way. See you next time? But wait, let's not end there, because stories like this deserve more depth, and I want to make sure you walk away with actionable insights just like Marcus did. Think about your own kitchen, your workplace, your family, your community. How often do we enforce invisible hierarchies that keep people at arm's length? Start small. Next time you see someone struggling, don't assume. Ask. Offer a meal, a listening ear, or a helping hand. Javier's journey teaches us resilience isn't about toughness. It's about vulnerability. After the climax, life at Marcus's Grill transformed. They introduced to story nights, where staff share their backgrounds over shared meals, fostering bonds that boost morale and reduce turnover. Customer reviews skyrocketed, praising the heart of the place. Sofia? She's thriving in school now, dreaming of becoming a chef like her dad. Marcus even partners with local charities, turning waste food into donations for hungry kids, a direct nod to that fateful evening. The emotional trigger of child hunger lingers, but it's channeled into positive change. Hook into this. What if your next kind act uncovers a mystery that heals not just others but you? Challenge yourself this week, reach out to someone overlooked, and see what unfolds. And if you're a business owner, rethink your rules. Flexibility can build loyalty money can't buy. Diving deeper into the psychology behind it all, because understanding why this broke Marcus helps us apply it to our lives. Psychologists call it empathic breakthrough, when a shocking revelation shatters our preconceptions, forcing emotional growth. Marcus's strict hierarchy was a defense mechanism born from his own past hardships, but Javier's story pierced it. Child hunger in particular triggers primal responses. Studies show it activates the same brain areas as personal pain, making us feel it viscerally. Kindness then becomes the antidote. Research from Harvard indicates acts of generosity release endorphins, creating a helper's high that benefits both giver and receiver. Javier's tragic backstory, with its layers of loss and heroism, adds mystery that keeps us engaged, much like a thriller novel. But in real life, these revelations often lead to post-traumatic growth, where survivors like Javier emerge stronger, inspiring others. Marcus experienced this secondhand, rebuilding his relationships and business, so how can you harness this? Practice curiosity over judgment next time you catch someone breaking rules. Pause and inquire. It might reveal a Sofia in need, turning a potential conflict into connection. Expanding on the restaurant setting because it's a microcosm of society. Kitchens are pressure cookers, high stakes, diverse teams, constant motion. Hierarchy keeps order chefs bark orders, dishwashers obey, but it can stifle humanity. Marcus learned that flattening it a bit through open communication boosts productivity. A study from the Journal of Hospitality Management found restaurants with empathetic leadership have 20% lower staff turnover. Javier's promotion wasn't charity. His village kitchen experience brought authentic flavors to the menu, like homemade salsas that became bestsellers. Sophia's presence humanized the space, with kids' drawings on the walls making it feel like family. The mystery of her past fleeing violence. Losing her mom highlights global issues like immigration and poverty, reminding us that borders don't erase shared humanity. Emotional triggers like this build community. After the story spread locally, patrons donated to a fund for Sophia's education, turning the restaurant into a hub of hope. As we approach the heart of this narrative, let's explore the long-term impact, because true change isn't a one-off event. Years later, Marcus reflects on that rainy night as his breaking point, not broken in pieces, but broken open to more love, more giving. Javier now co-owns a food truck extension of the restaurant, specializing in Mexican fusion that honors Maria's memory. Sophia, a teenager now, volunteers at shelters, feeding others as her dad once fed her. The climax wasn't just the staff meeting. It was Marcus's personal transformation, mending fences with his kids over family dinners at the restaurant. Hooks like this keep us hooked. Tragedy reveals strength. Kindness begets kindness. If you're feeling stuck in your own hierarchy, whether at work or home, take a page from Marcus. Look for the hungry child in someone's eyes, literal or metaphorical, and act. It might break you, but in the best way. To make this even more relatable, consider similar real-life stories that echo this one. There's a case of a New York diner owner who caught an employee feeding stray dogs with scraps, only to discover the worker was homeless himself, leading to a shelter partnership. Or the cafe boss in London who found a barista sharing coffee with a child, uncovering a refugee backstory that inspired a community fund. These tales show patterns: hierarchy meets humanity, mystery unfolds, emotional triggers lead to climax and resolution. In our story, the CTA is clear. Don't wait for a caught moment. Create one. Comment below with your own experiences of kindness in unexpected places. Let's build a thread of inspiration. Like if this motivated you to look closer at those around you, and subscribe for weekly stories that blend heart with life lessons. Your engagement helps spread these messages further. Finally, as we wrap this epic tale, remember, life in a restaurant or anywhere is short and unpredictable. Marcus's discovery about Sophia's past didn't just break him, it rebuilt him stronger, kinder, more connected. So go out there, feed the hungry souls you encounter, unravel the mysteries with compassion, and watch how it transforms your world. Thanks for sticking with me through this journey. If it resonated, smash that like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts. Until next time, keep the kindness flowing. Javier wasn't always the quiet dishwasher scrubbing plates in the steamy backroom of Marcus's grill, his hands raw from hot water and detergent, his eyes downcast but steady. No, his story begins far south, in the sun-baked hills of a small village in rural Mexico called San Miguel de las Flores, where the air smelled of fresh tortillas, blooming cacti, and the faint undercurrent of fear that had crept in like dust under doors over the years. Born in 1985 to a family of modest farmers, Javier grew up as the eldest of 5 siblings, learning early the value of hard work under his father's calloused guidance, tending maize fields at dawn, repairing fences against wandering livestock, and dreaming of something more stable than the whims of weather and soil. His mother, a warm-hearted woman named Rosa, instilled in him a deep sense of community. She was the one who organized village potlucks during fiestas, ensuring no family went without a share of the harvest. "We eat together, or we starve alone," she'd say, her voice like a gentle breeze carrying wisdom. Javier took that to heart, even as a boy, often sneaking extra portions to the elderly widow down the road or the orphan kids playing in the dusty streets. School was sporadic for Javier. Books were scarce, and the nearest classroom a 2-hour walk, but he was sharp, devouring whatever he could from borrowed texts and radio broadcasts. By his teens, he discovered a passion for cooking, not the fancy kind from glossy magazines, but the soulful, resourceful type born of necessity. He'd experiment in their tiny kitchen, turning scraps of beans, chilies, and whatever protein they could afford into meals that made his siblings' eyes widen with delight. At 18, after his father passed from a sudden illness, likely untreated due to the village's lack of a proper clinic, Javier stepped up as the family provider. He left school for good and took a job at a roadside taqueria in the nearby town, rising at 4 a.m. to chop onions and grill carne asada, sending most of his wages home. It was there he met Maria, a bright-eyed teacher fresh from university in Guadalajara, assigned to the village school. She was everything he wasn't: educated, outspoken, with a fire for justice that burned quietly but fiercely. Maria saw the gangs encroaching on their community, recruiting young boys with promises of quick money, and she fought back with words and actions, starting after-school programs to keep kids off the streets. Their romance bloomed like the desert flowers after rain-stolen glances during village markets. Long walks under starry skies where Javier would share stories of his makeshift recipes and Maria would read him poems from her favorite authors. They married in 2008, a simple ceremony with homemade tamales and laughter echoing through the plaza. Javier, inspired by Maria's drive, quit the taqueria and opened a small community kitchen in an abandoned shed behind the church. He called it La Mesa de To-Do's, the table for all, funding it with odd jobs and donations from sympathetic villagers. It started small: soups for the hungry, sandwiches for school kids whose parents worked the fields all day. But word spread, and soon it became a haven. Javier's cooking wasn't just food. It was comfort pozole simmered with love, enchiladas spiced with stories. Maria helped, turning it into an educational space where kids learned math by measuring ingredients or history through tales of ancient Aztec feasts. Their daughter, Sofia, arrived in 2016, a bundle of joy with Maria's curious eyes and Javier's gentle smile. Fatherhood transformed Javier. He'd sing lullabies while stirring pots, vowing to give her the stability he never had. The paradise cracked under pressure. The cartels, ever expanding like shadows at dusk, saw La Mesa de To-Do's as a threat. It wasn't just feeding people. It was building resilience, a community that didn't need their protection. Whispers turned to demands: pay up or shut down. Javier and Maria refused, naively believing their small acts of kindness were too insignificant to provoke real violence. One fateful night in 2023, as thunder rumbled over the hills, masked men burst into their home. "You think you're heroes?" one snarled, guns glinting in the lamplight. Maria, shielding Sofia in her arms, screamed for Javier to run. Shots rang out: chaos, blood, screams. Maria fell, her body crumpling as she pushed Sofia toward Javier. He grabbed his daughter, fleeing into the night with bullets whizzing past, his world shattering in seconds. They hid in a neighbor's barn until dawn, then hitched rides north, crossing rivers and dodging patrols. Javier carrying Sofia on his back for miles, whispering promises of safety through his grief. Maria's last words haunted him: "Keep feeding them, mi amor." Keep the table open. Arriving in the U.S. as undocumented refugees, they navigated a labyrinth of shelters, from dusty border towns to overcrowded urban hostels. Javier took whatever work he could, picking crops in California fields, washing cars in Arizona, lots always on the move, to avoid detection. Sofia, traumatized, withdrew into silence, her once bright laughter replaced by wide-eyed stares and nightmares that left her trembling. Hunger became their constant companion. Javier often went without so she could eat, his frame thinning, his resolve hardening like overcooked meat. He learned English from library books and fellow migrants, piecing together phrases to survive job interviews. By 2025, they landed in the small town where Marcus's grill stood, Javier landing the dishwasher gig after a desperate plea. He hid his pain behind a mask of diligence, but every scraped plate reminded him of La Mesa de To-Do's, the table he lost, but the spirit he carried. Feeding Sofia those scraps wasn't theft. It was a fragment of the man he used to be, a father clinging to kindness in a world that had stripped him bare. Little did he know, that act would reopen doors he thought forever closed, turning a stranger's discovery into a bridge back to hope. If this expanded tale of Javier's journey resonates with you, his resilience forged in fire, his kindness unextinguished, hit that like button to honor stories of quiet heroes. Subscribe for more deep dives into lives that inspire. And drop a comment. What's one hardship you've overcome that shaped who you are today? Your shares keep these narratives alive, reminding us all that backstories aren't just history, they're the fuel for tomorrow's triumphs. Javier wasn't always the quiet dishwasher scrubbing plates in the steamy back room of Marcus's grill, his hands raw from scalding water and harsh detergent, his eyes downcast but flickering with a haunted resilience that spoke of battles fought in silence. No, his story begins far south, in the sun-baked hills of a small village in rural Mexico called San Miguel de las Flores, where the air hung heavy with the aroma of fresh tortillas. Warming on comals, the sharp tang of blooming cacti after rare rains, and an insidious undercurrent of fear that slithered through the community like smoke from a distant wildfire, choking hope before it could fully ignite. Born in 1985 to a family of modest farmers, Javier grew up as the eldest of 5 siblings, his small shoulders, already burdened with responsibility under his father's calloused guidance, rising before dawn to tend the maize fields, the earth cool and gritty under his bare feet, repairing splintered fences against wandering livestock that could devour a family's livelihood in a single night, and dreaming in whispers of a life less tethered to the merciless whims of drought and flood. His mother, Rosa, a woman whose warm-hearted smile could melt the hardest cynicism, instilled in him a profound sense of community. She was the village's unspoken anchor, organizing potlucks during fiestas where laughter echoed under string lights, ensuring no family went without a share of the meager harvest. "We eat together or we starve alone," she'd murmur, her voice a soothing balm carrying ancient wisdom, her hands rough from years of kneading dough gently ruffling Javier's hair as he absorbed her lessons like parched soil drinking rain. Those early years were laced with a bittersweet joy, a fragile happiness that Javier clung to amid the grinding poverty. School was a sporadic luxury for him, books tattered and scarce, the nearest classroom a grueling 2-hour trek, over rocky paths that blistered his feet, but his mind was a sponge, sharp and insatiable, devouring whatever scraps of knowledge he could glean from borrowed texts smuggled home or crackling radio broadcasts that painted worlds beyond the village's dusty horizons. By his teens, a passion for cooking ignited within him, not the polished artistry of celebrity chefs, but a raw, soulful alchemy born of sheer necessity and love. In their cramped kitchen lit by a single flickering bulb, he'd experiment with whatever meager ingredients, fate provided dried beans salvaged from the market's discards, fiery chilies plucked from wild bush, scraps of meat bartered from neighbors, transforming them into meals that filled the air with savory warmth, making his siblings' eyes sparkle with rare delight and drawing grateful sighs from his exhausted parents. Each bite was a victory against hunger, a quiet rebellion against the emptiness that gnawed at their bellies during lean seasons, and Javier felt a swell of pride, a tender glow in his chest, knowing he could coax comfort from chaos. At 18, tragedy struck like a sudden storm when his father collapsed in the fields, his body racked by an illness that festered untreated in the absence of a proper clinic, his final breaths ragged and filled with unspoken regrets. Javier's world tilted, grief crashing over him in waves that left him breathless, tears mixing with sweat as he buried the man who taught him strength. He abandoned school forever, stepping into the void as the family's provider, his heart heavy with a sorrow that aged him overnight. He took a job at a roadside taqueria in the nearby town, rising at 4 a.m. to the chill of pre-dawn darkness, chopping onions that stung his eyes like accusations, grilling carne asada over sputtering flames while sending most of his paltry wages home to keep his siblings fed and clothed. It was there, amid the sizzle and steam, that he met Maria, a bright-eyed teacher fresh from university in Guadalajara, assigned to the village school with a fire for justice that burned quietly but unyieldingly in her dark eyes. She was everything he wasn't, educated, articulate, her spirit a beacon of defiance against the encroaching shadows of corruption. Maria saw the gangs slithering into their community, luring young boys with glittering promises of quick cash and power, and she fought back with fierce determination, starting after-school programs where laughter drowned out the distant gunshots, her voice trembling with passion as she urged the children to dream bigger than the violence surrounding them. Their romance unfolded like a desert bloom after a monsoon stolen. Glances across bustling village markets where the scent of ripe mangoes mingled with her subtle perfume. Long walks under vast starry skies where Javier would share tales of his improvised recipes, his voice soft with vulnerability, and Maria would recite poems from her cherished books, her words weaving magic that made his heart ache with a love so profound it terrified him. He proposed on a moonlit hill overlooking the village, his hands shaking as he offered a simple ring forged from a melted-down family heirloom, tears glistening in her eyes as she whispered yes, her embrace a sanctuary against the world's cruelties. They married in 2008, a humble ceremony in the village plaza, with homemade tamales steaming on platters and joyous laughter ringing out like bells, Javier's chest swelling with a happiness so vivid it felt like sunlight piercing storm clouds. Inspired by Maria's unshakable drive, he quit the taqueria and poured his soul into opening a small community kitchen in an abandoned shed behind the weathered church. He named it La Mesa de Todos, the table for all, funding it through relentless odd jobs and heartfelt donations from villagers who saw the spark of hope in his eyes. It began modestly, hearty soups bubbling in dented pots for the hungry elders, simple sandwiches, wrapped in newspaper for school kids whose parents toiled endlessly in the fields. But word spread like wildfire, and soon it became a sacred haven, where the aroma of simmering pozole wrapped around weary souls like a warm hug, and Javier's enchiladas, spiced with stories of resilience, fed not just bodies but spirits. Maria transformed it further, infusing education into every meal, children learning fractions by measuring flour, history through Javier's tales of ancient Aztec feasts passed down from his grandmother. Their daughter, Sofia, arrived in 2016, a miraculous bundle with Maria's inquisitive gaze and Javier's gentle, dimpled smile, her first cries echoing through their modest home like a promise of renewal. Fatherhood enveloped Javier in a profound, aching joy. He'd cradle her tiny form against his chest, singing soft lullabies while stirring pots in the kitchen, the rhythm of his spoon matching the beat of his overflowing heart, vowing through silent tears of gratitude to shield her from the hardships that had scarred him. Yet, as Sofia grew, toddling through the kitchen with sauce-smeared cheeks and infectious giggles, the shadows deepened. The cartels, insidious and ever-expanding like a plague of locusts, viewed La Mesa de Todos not as charity but as defiance, a community fortified by kindness, resistant to their grip of terror. Whispers of threats evolved into brazen demands: pay, protection, fees, or face consequences. Javier and Maria, their hearts pounding, with a mix of fear and fury, refused, clinging to the naive belief that their small acts of love were too humble to ignite true wrath. But doubt gnawed at Javier in the quiet nights, his arms wrapped around Maria as Sofia slept nearby, the weight of potential loss pressing on his chest like an anvil. Then came the night that shattered everything, a thunderous storm mirroring the chaos descending upon them in 2023, as lightning cracked the sky and rain hammered the tin roof like accusatory fists. Masked men burst through their door, their boots thudding like death knells, guns glinting coldly in the flickering lamplight. "You think you're heroes, feeding the weak and defying us?" One snarled, his voice a venomous hiss that sent ice through Javier's veins. Time slowed to a horrifying crawl. Maria's scream, piercing the air as she scooped Sofia into her arms, her body trembling with maternal ferocity, shielding their daughter from the nightmare unfolding. Javier lunged forward, his heart exploding with terror and rage, but bullets tore through the room like furious hornets. Maria crumpled, blood blooming across her chest like a cruel flower, her final gasp a whispered run. "Love them, ... as she pushed Sofia toward him with her last strength. Javier's world imploded in agony, a guttural sob ripping from his throat as he grabbed Sofia, her tiny body convulsing in sobs against his, fleeing into the storm-slashed night with bullets whizzing past, his legs burning, his mind a whirlwind of grief that threatened to consume him. They hid in a neighbor's damp barn until dawn, Javier rocking Sofia as silent tears streamed down his face, the scent of Maria's blood lingering on his clothes like a ghost, his soul fractured into irreparable shards. From there, survival became a blur of desperation, hitching perilous rides north on rattling trucks, crossing swollen rivers where the current tugged at them like greedy hands, dodging border patrols in the blistering desert heat that baked their skin and parched their throats. Javier carried Sofia on his back for endless miles, her weight a poignant reminder of what he'd lost and what he must protect, whispering fractured promises of safety through his own choking sobs, his body racked by exhaustion and a grief so raw it felt like knives twisting in his gut. Arriving in the U.S. as undocumented refugees, they navigated a labyrinth of shadowy shelters, from dusty border town hovels reeking of despair to overcrowded urban hostels buzzing with weary voices. Javier seized whatever work came his way, picking sun-ripened crops in California's endless fields until his back screamed in protest, washing cars in Arizona lots under relentless sun that blurred his vision with sweat and tears always on the move. Paranoia a constant companion, his heart skipping at every siren or stern glance. Sofia, shattered by the trauma, retreated into a heartbreaking silence, her once vibrant laughter silenced, her wide eyes haunted by shadows, her little body wasting from stress and sporadic meals that left her cheeks hollow and her grip on his hand feeble. Hunger became their unrelenting shadow. Javier often forfeited his portions, watching with a lump in his throat as Sofia nibbled meager bites, his own stomach twisting in protest, guilt flooding him like bile for failing to provide the abundance he'd dreamed of. He pieced together English from tattered library books and murmured conversations with fellow migrants, his voice cracking with determination amid the loneliness that enveloped him like fog. By 2025, fate led them to the quiet town housing Marcus's Grill, where Javier, with a desperate plea laced with quiet dignity, secured the dishwasher roll, his hands plunging into soapy depths that mirrored the abyss of his sorrow. He concealed his anguish behind a facade of unwavering diligence, but every scraped plate evoked echoes of La Mesa de to-dos, the table he'd lost in flames of violence, yet the spirit of which burned eternally in his chest, a flickering ember of kindness amid the ashes. Feeding Sofia those forbidden scraps in the restaurant's corner wasn't mere theft. It was a desperate thread connecting him to the man he'd been, a father whose love defied devastation, a giver whose heart, though broken, refused to harden. Little did he know that vulnerable act would pierce the veil of a stranger's indifference, unraveling a mystery of shared humanity that promised healing in the unlikeliest of places. If this deepened dive into Javier's emotional odyssey of love's tender warmth, grief's crushing void, and resilience's quiet fire stirs something within you, smash that like button to celebrate the unsung warriors among us. Subscribe for more immersive tales that peel back the layers of the human spirit, and share in the comments. What personal storm have you weathered that forged your unbreakable strength? Your voices amplify these stories, weaving a tapestry of empathy that reminds us, all in the depths of pain, hope endures.